The only item on the agenda today, members, is adoption of the House budget. We will have our next meeting on, I guess it's the Thursday, on the 8th. And so today we're just going to be going over House budget approval, and we will have the House Controller, Barb Julich, present. Just by way of general introduction, we are processing or proceeding on this proposed budget today in order to present a House budget number to the State Government Finance Committee this week so that they can include it in their budget bill. So we are adopting a budget, but of course we don't know yet what the end of session final appropriation for the House of Representatives is going to be. But we are basically, we proceed in this manner so that we have a formal request in through the budgeting process. And we will find out at the end of session how much we end up with, or in years past. I don't expect this to happen this year, but in years past, in fact, the line item, there was a line item veto for the whole House and Senate budget. So almost anything can happen, as we know, in this legislative session, but this is to get the conversation started and to get a number into our omnibus bills. So first, I guess before we get to that, we should do the minutes. Representative Agbaje, do you have, did you have a chance to review them for March 25th, 2021?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Representative Agbaje moves adoption of the minutes for March 25th, 2021. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion prevails and the minutes are approved for March 25th, 2021. The chair will move adoption of the House budget, and I will ask Ms. Julich to identify herself for the record and to present this set of documents to us.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Barb Julich and I am the House of Representatives Controller. You were sent 3 attachments for this meeting. A overview memo, a line item detail of the budget, and then a summary of the requested new funding for this upcoming biennium. Just a high level review of this budget. This budget does request a biennial spending level of $83,423,000. This is $3.4 million higher than the prior biennium, or about 4.3%. It is requesting an additional appropriated resource of $2.649 million for the biennium. It does request use of just over $3 million in carry forward funds. At this level of resources, this funding would support current staff levels. It would support the reinstatement of the currently suspended 2% COLA, 3.5% merit increases. But again, that is assuming the requested resources. It would fund it would fund for consideration of additional compensation increases over the next biennium. It funds known operating non-salary increases, including health insurance costs. It funds a known increase for member salary that has recently been recommended by the Legislative Salary Council. And then it funds pre-pandemic level operating trends in terms of member expenses and other non-salary operations such as technology, communication, and professional services. With that, I would refer you to the document entitled Fiscal Year 2022-23 Budget Summary Proposal. The first page of that document outlines that higher level review of the total $83.4 million in request. Of this, $80.3 million would be from a general fund appropriation and $3 million from carry forward. And the table below that just is a summary of some of the numbers I had just went through. At this level, we would leave $4.4 million in estimated carry forward spending untouched. That is a number we landed on 2 years ago. It's roughly equivalent to 2 months of cash flow in case there is a shutdown or anything like that would happen, hope that. And so again, we're just aiming for that same target of carry forward funds to be provided for that situation. On page 2 of that document is a review of the appropriation. As stated, I am requesting a appropriation increase of $2.649 million. It's broken down into 3 categories. $540,000 would be to cover the increase of member salary that has been recommended by the Legislative Salary Council. This is a $1,750 annual increase per member, or 3.8%. It would go into effect July 1st. The $540,000 does include associated employer payroll taxes and employer retirement costs. The second category would be $619,000 to establish a pool for additional compensation increases to be considered in the 22-23 biennium. And the third is slightly under 1.5 million that would cover known non-salary operating increase. The vast majority of this is for insurance costs. As stated, this budget is also recommending $3 million in carry forward spending. This dollar amount is based on known underspending in fiscal 21 and known underspending in fiscal 20 and estimated underspending in fiscal 21, primarily from stopping a number of projects such as the furniture replacement projects and some of our IT projects. So that money will carry forward, and also the suspension of the salary in fiscal 21. This money will carry forward and is available, and I'm proposing it as outlined in the second table. $630,000 would be to implement our 4-year computer replacement cycle. We are at that time of the cycle, so $630,000 would go to replace computers for members and staff. $100,000 is put on here as a placeholder for the Rules Committee to consider an additional one-time option for staff to convert an additional 50 hours of vacation time to deferred comp. We, as you heard a few weeks ago, we have a number of staff who have accumulated vacation and will accumulate comp time over this legislative session. So this would help them bring their hours below maximums, and so they don't lose those hours. $106,000 would be for end-of-life equipment replacements that had been budgeted but had been delayed in fiscal year 21. This includes some equipment for House publications and some IT equipment. Another $36,000 for some known system upgrades, including an email security testing system, some network upgrades for the Sergeant at Arms office related to the security card system, and then budget and accounting and human resources system upgrades that have been delayed. And then this proposal establishes a $2.187 million contingency fund that would be utilized for high priority one-time needs as identified. Examples of what this could be used for is a security assessment, security upgrades. It could be for building assessment in terms of space and how we utilize our space. It could restart a number of the projects that had been suspended, specifically the furniture replacement projects or other high priority needs as identified throughout the biennium. And then those items total up to $3 million in carry forward. That, Mr. Chair, concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Julich. I just want to give a little bit of history for members. So first of all, in the last biennium, in the 2019-2020 biennium, we were heading towards a bit of a fiscal cliff because member compensation continued to increase through the Independent Constitutional Salary Council, and the legislative appropriation had not increased in order to make up for that. In addition, over a period of years, staff compensation had significantly fallen behind competitive positions in other parts of state and local government, and we brought in NCSL to do a compensation study. We began the process of catching up our staff compensation with their peers in the 2020 and 2019 calendar years. But with the onset of the pandemic and economic uncertainty, we suspended some of the catch-up that we were planning for staff compensation. This budget would allow us, if it were approved, to essentially go back and put in place those staff compensation increases, and it continues to fund the legislative compensation that increases automatically. In addition, we have significant safety and security concerns in the state office building, which we anticipate will continue on. And this budget allows us to at least start to have a conversation about how to address some of those concerns in a more systemic fashion. So just a bit of arc of where the House budget has been, why these proposals are coming in where they are, and I believe they are pretty consistent with what state agencies have requested. Okay, so I guess the next question is if members have questions or comments for Ms. Julich or for the chair. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, with the contingency funds, I know that some of the items listed as potential expenses under the contingency funds, we actually appropriated in the last budget, and then those things were not spent. I'm wondering why we are not, in my other committees, it's not common to see appropriations given without a clearly defined expense. And I'm wondering why we are not defining the expenses.
Representative New Brindley, I'll give a general answer and then maybe Ms. Julich can give you a more specific one on the items that you're raising. In general, the House budget is appropriated through the state government finance bill. Money comes in, the Rules Committee has authority to adopt it. But there's a tradition of a significant carry forward account to deal with all sorts of expenses that may be expected, maybe not, but to give the House a bit of independence from budgeting through the executive branch. That's what the carry forward does. And it allows us to react in the event we have special sessions, we have other unexpected expenses arising, et cetera. So that's the way that this budget has always been put together. I think it is a good conversation to have going forward, whether this is the best way to do it. Other states, for example, have an open and standing appropriation in statute that allows each legislative body to essentially appropriate funds as needed so that they are constitutionally separate, more separate from the executive branch. And in that kind of scenario, I think a more specific detailed set of expenditures with less cushion built in would be appropriate. But with our dependence on another branch of government, that cushion has served us well over time. Ms. Julich, did you have a specific response to Representative New Brindley?
No, Mr. Chair, Representative New Brindley, I would just add that if we looked at the 2.1 million and if we just reinstated things that were not done, it would take up the entirety of that 2.1 million. And this just provides flexibility to either do that, or if something came along unexpected or a higher priority, to allocate a portion of it to that. And so we're not so strapped into one thing or two major things, that some flexibility in a priority of unknown things can be built into the budget.
Representative Brindley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, are these contingency funds part of the carry forward? I understood those as two different things, but maybe they're not. Maybe it's the same pot.
Mr. Chair, Representative New Brindley, they are part of the carry forward.
Okay, thank you.
Other member questions or commentary? Okay, seeing none, the chair renews the motion to adopt the House budget. And the motion before us is adoption, as I said, members, and we will present this in state government finance. I will, and then we will determine at the end of session how much money is actually available. So all of those in favor of adopting the House budget, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
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 The motion prevails and the House budget is adopted for the next biennium.